I just spent a few minutes on the Lutec website. There's two guys calling them Lutec, and they have set up a company to make or manufacture or lease, and certainly to sell investments on a free energy device or two, or what they call their free energy technology. They are currently claiming a over unity of 4.4, which is 440 times output to the energy their device gives compared to the input, which of course is impossible. You know what is so fucking funny about that? If you have a device that somehow magically creates 440% more energy than it takes in, you know what happens to that device? It gets heavier. E equals mc squared. But if you have a device that creates magical energy at 440% and you have no output, suppose you take that 440% and you plug it into the device itself, then what happens? What happens is the device gets heavier and heavier and heavier exponentially to the tune of 440% exponentially until it starts weighing from, let us say, 20 pounds to 200,000 billion pounds if you just keep it going and going and going. And it, I suppose, would tunnel its way to the center of the Earth, and maybe the Earth would start orbiting it. You know, if you take a grandfather clock and you wind it up, your act of winding the grandfather clock makes the grandfather clock heavier, because you are adding energy, and E equals mc squared, and the grandfather clock with the spring run down is lighter than the grandfather clock with the spring wound up. Of course, E equals mc squared, and C being such a large number, the weight of winding up a grandfather clock is extremely tiny. I doubt you could even measure it. But if you take a device that multiplies electricity and therefore energy exponentially by 440% and you plug it into itself, eventually, and pretty damn soon, you're going to notice a weight increase. This, by the way, is one of the many, many, many reasons why over-unity does not exist. Here are some other funny things that just cracks me up about the website. Here is one device the Lutec people are calling the Lutec Energy Amplifier. When you want to read about the technical information on the Lutec Energy Amplifier, you will find more information coming soon. The Lutec people, of course, have many images of their devices diagramming inputs and outputs, but notice this says input cables. What they mean is their free energy device runs off of a battery. That's right, free energy, and it runs off of a battery. Why the bloody fuck don't they add a few large capacitors, get the device running, disconnect it from the battery, and have it feed itself? If you have 440% over unity, surely it can run itself using 100% of that energy and power something else with the additional 340%. Why do they add a battery? You know what happens when you plug this device into itself? It comes screeching to a halt. The Lutec clowns used to claim that one of the devices they built had a over-unity percentage of 2,617.99%. Of course, that is impossible. One can only have less than 100% efficiency on any device in any system. Around the year 2001, these people claimed that their device generated a greater amount of energy coming out than goes in. If you have an efficiency greater than 100%, you have done your math wrong. Of course, Lutec is either lying or they are terribly, terribly mistaken. You can pick which one explanation you prefer. Using a tachometer, one finds 4.5 revolutions per second. Using a dynamometer, one finds 1.0 newtons of force. You therefore take those two numbers, you multiply it by 2, and then you multiply it by pi, and you get watts at 28.27. If you are Lutec, use an amp meter and you measure the current on each of the 3 coils on their Lutec 1000 device. Each coil is 0.6 amps, and you measure the resistance of those coils stationary and get 1 ohm. If you are Lutec, you then take those numbers and you multiply the current by 2, and then you multiply it by the resistance, and you get 0.36 watts. You then have 3 coils, so you take that 0.6 watt and you multiply it by 3, and you get 1.08 watts going in. And then you take that 1.08 watts and you compare it to your 28.27 watts, and lo and behold, you have discovered magic. 2,617.99% efficiency, which is, of course, over unity. Many of the calculations that Lutec did are correct, such as the output of 28.27 watts. If you measure the amps using an amp meter on each coil, and you get an average of 0.6 amps, and you multiply that by the number of coils, which is 3, you get 1.8 amps. You then have to convert that into watts by the power supply, which Lutec didn't do. When you do that, you get 48. If you therefore convert that into watts by taking current times voltage, you get 86.4 watts. Now compare 86.4 watts with 28.27 watts. You get an efficiency rating of about 33%. So compare the correct calculation, approximately 33%, with the incorrect calculation, 2,618% efficiency. And since the laws of physics mandates a efficiency less than 100%, guess which figure is correct?